All right, welcome. I am going to be going through doing a special one off of the Dodgers, going through a full team here. I'll do all of these, but it'll come much later in the process. But because the Dodgers did just win the World Series about a week ago, I want to do this while it was fresh in everyone's mind. Take the taking my thought process here, sharing it, and how not only do we make individual cards, but how do we make a whole team that fits the team perspective. So I'll go into some individual cards, but I want to take this through the lens of how do we encapsulate a full team, how they did. I think the Dodgers are an interesting use case, right? 93 win team, which is good, not great, not necessarily a 100 win team. Solid offensively, gets on base, scores a lot of runs, hits for a lot of power. Not an incredibly fast team. ERA, starting pitching, middle of the road, though when you sit and look at the playoffs, they actually had elite starting pitching, and that's because a lot of their good starters were either ineffective or not as effective as you would expect during the regular season, didn't pitch a lot during the regular season, so their starting pitching will be a little overinflated based off their regular season stats and probably reflect something closer to their playoff roster. And the bullpen was a bit of a liability in the lower half, close to the lower third there. A couple key metrics, just ways to visualize teams. So they got a couple tens, not very fast team, good defense, poor arm catching. Couple of things here. Over a 6,000 point team, if you count everybody at full price, and then so something to consider there. So this is better than a team than you could put together on your own if you had a 5,000 point salary cap. All right. The one edit that will definitely be made, and this is just locked in stone, is Ohtani because he had the 55 home runs. You'll see here that if you make him straight up, if you just use the regular stats, the best you can get is the 17 to 20 home run. I think 55 home runs that's a magic number where I think you should get 10, 16 to 20 or the equivalent, so 9, 15 to 20, etc. You have to do a custom date range, so I do May 2nd through September 26th. I'll go through specific edits here later, but I just want to say, hey, this is locked in. This Ohtani is the card that'll be in the final set. Freeman we've saw in the 10, so great. Mookie Betts, just made him, add right off the running his chart through the Showdown bot. I would look at ways to try to get him to a speed A if I can make any edits. If I had full custom ability, that's what I'd do. I'd put him up to an A19, A18. I know he didn't steal a ton of bases, but I still think of him as being a good athlete. Pajas obviously deserves every bit of the outfield +2 with the World Series save and catch. I would think of him as being a speed A as well, but probably lesser so than Betts. I think the Betts B13 is misrepresentative. Teoscar Hernandez here, I would probably put him as an outfield +0, but this is how it brings him out. For some reason, I'm getting Brad Fulmer energy from that card. I like it. So you'll see the charts down here. Conforto, nothing exciting here. Speed C10 is a little weird for me. Will Smith is interesting for me. So, I'll get to Alex call here in a second. So, Will Smith has a 404 on base, which would be a 10. He did not qualify for the batting title. He had that hand injury that John Smoltz spoke about pretty in depth during the World Series there. So, but he is over 400 at bats, which is kind of what I would consider. It's like a minimum to be a 10 on base, is you'd have to have 400 at bats. So, the option here to move him up to be a 10 on base is something I would consider, but so the minimum to be a 10 on base would be a 357, right? He's way over that, 400 on base. So I'm torn. I got two options. You got the 10, you got the 9, 1 out, or 10, the 10 on base here, and I'm between both of those. And so then, and I'll kind of go through my logic of, what the decision one of how to make a decision on that. Tommy Edman, third base +4 is pretty crazy, except for he won't be able to use it because Muncy has to play third base with Ohtani DHing. Love this Muncy card. Him being Speed B is kind of weird to me, but I guess he's more athletic than I think. So love it. Rojas here, second place +4 to go with Betts to get you 8. Muncy gets you 9. I think these are all pretty representative cards. No major notes on this. Kike Hernandez. Okay, so this is something that I'll go into more in lower on base, and but I wanted to show this. So if you do Kike Hernandez, if you just put him in the worst, he can get this 6, 1 to 5 out, or there's a 5-0 out. Because he had such a low on base, so 255 here. When I was making full sets, and during the older sets, and the on base shifts a little bit. 320 was considered. That was the line to be a 7. If you're above 320, you would get a 7. If you were 320 to 300, you'd be a 6. If you're under 300, you'd be a 5. So he's way below that. Obviously, the on-base trends have, gone a little bit wonky. What I have done for players is if they're over 300 at bats, they just get whatever the worst outcome they can get from the regular is. If they're under 300 at bats, what I'll do is you'll see you have the Kike Hernandez here. If you go from come on, slide down for me. There it is. The pitch. If you go era pitch clock, which is what he's in, I will put him up in the steroid era, and I will build a chart. And it'll give me different options. See, I have a bunch of options in the 5s here. 7, 1 to 10 out, Jesus. But we'll go to the pitch clock era here, and we'll see how this shifts. These are all going to shift up, right? Where he's just going to get 5, 1 to 0 out, not doing that. 7, 1 to 7, 7, 1 to 8, 6, 1 to 5. So to get more variability in the on bases, I will go to the steroid era for people under 300 at bats and pick the chart that makes the most sense. So give that to Kike here. And Hyung-Sung Kim here. Same deal. He's going to be under the 300 at bats. So to get him from a 1 to 2 out to a 1 to 5 out is a 7. We'll do the denote it with an S down here. So chart 2 as an S. I think Kim, and I'm going to go through the other option. Kim could be replaced, and that ties to the Will Smith argument as well, where it's like you want to make all these decisions at the same time, which is why you want to take your notes. All right, you'll see I have 2 options for starters. If you insist on doing everything through the 2020 version, these top versions would be what I would use. For my set, I will use the 2021 pitchers. I think it gives more variability. You don't end up with ones. You don't end up with 1 on bases. When you use the 2000, I don't even think you can get a 2 control. So you just end up with more options for control if you use the 2021. So I will do that. It will inflate the prices of the relievers, but since I primarily play single season, that actually doesn't bother me as much, but just want to let you know that was the logic there. So here is Yamamoto, and he was a top 10 ERA. I make all my top 10 in ERA. I make them custom, so I make all 10 of them at the same time. That way there's kind of aces throughout the control, and he would get one of them. So he has one of the 5s. So 5, 1 to 16, no double. That's how I would think of that. Nobody else in the set, nobody else who's outside the top 10 will get that. You can't just luck into that. That's kind of sacred, and there's a couple of major milestones here. Kershaw, all-time great, right? Multiple-time Cy Young winner. So people like that, people who are, are well-known, have had good long careers, and they're towards the end. Sometimes I'll try to find ways to give them a little bump. In the past, people like maybe like a Scott Rowland at the end of his career would get a +3 third base. Speed and fielding and innings pitched are easy ways to give people a little nudge, just to give them a bit of a tip of the cap on the way out. So Kershaw should be innings pitched 5. You do this custom date range. He's a 5-1 to 15 with 6 innings pitched. I think that's perfectly representative of him, with a little bit of an extra bump, which helps the Dodgers a ton, because 6 innings pitched in this set is really good. 6 innings pitched is like the new 7 innings pitched. Glasnow, 5 innings pitched. Not something you're necessarily going to want to pitch tired a ton, but pretty good chart for someone outside the top 10. No double, decent strikeout. I think that's fine. Blake Snell pitched great in very limited regular season. Pitched great through the playoffs. Another toughie. Give him a good chart. This is fine. Bullpen, it's going to be weak. No 2 innings pitched guys. Your best guy is Jake Dreyer, probably. But you're probably going to pitch most of your starters long, and use your bullpen pretty limited here. A lot of interesting stuff going on how you navigate the team. So this is the first draft through. This is the team that I would put out. None of this is set in stone, but this is I'll put out 2 10-person charts at a PDF. I'll put that in the comments. This is what that team is. These 20 charts right here. But I'm going to sit here and look at it. I'm going to make a couple of notes, right? One, that Will Smith decision is looming large. And Betts and Pages, both I would make notes. Opportunity to move those up to speed A if I can find a way to do it that's not too disruptive, that keeps them within the ranges of these cards. Also, Kim, if we come over here, he played under 200 plate appearances, and then we have Alex Call here, who didn't do as much with the Dodgers, but if we make sure we check on the trade, he actually had over 300 plate appearances when you include his time with the Nationals. Good on base, 361. I mean, that would be high enough to be a 10, but he doesn't have the at-bats. You would want at least 400 at-bats to be a 10, and he doesn't qualify for the batting title. So that brings me to my next point is I am planning to do a pennant run for this set. And the World Series champ in my book always gets a full 25-man roster. You have a lot of contributors. You make a deep run in the playoffs. You've probably had, players who contributed early and gotten hurt, so they get the full 25-man. If I initially was to make a rough draft, the Alex Call would be kind of the first one on that list. So you get the 9 there. Also, Will Smith is the only catcher on the roster, so we would add someone like Dalton Rushing. Sasaki pitched a little bit in the World Series. He actually comes through as a starter based on what he did in the regular season. 0. This is just a really interesting card, right? A 0, 4 innings pitched, but 1 to 19 out with only a walk. This is about as boom or bust as possible. So he seems young, seems like you have a great career. This would be an interesting first card for him. When you start doing the pennant run, guys, you'll get weird stats and combinations you wouldn't necessarily get in the primary set because people have such small sample size. So here we have a 3-inning pitch reliever, right, which is like on that 20-man roster be crazy because he would just, if you did get to a bullpen early, you wouldn't have to necessarily pitch people tired a ton. He'd just protect you so much for a team that already has crazy innings pitched compared to their peers. And just, another arm, another option. Anytime you get a 10-point reliever, though, you want to make note of that. But, so, you're looking at Alex Call, you're saying, hey, this guy's got 300 at-bats, Kim's got under 200 at-bats, Call had a good year. If we go up here, we would say does this look like the second best lineup in the league? Yeah, sure, they have 2 10s, but they have 2 9s and 2 8s, and then you're filling out with 7s. They're the second best on-base team in the league. Probably want to add a little bit of on-base there. So, 1, if you give Will Smith the 10, you get 3 10s. That kind of changes it a little bit. Or the other option is, so here's the pennant run here. If we switch Kim and Call, you can, in the regular set, so this wouldn't be, assume he's not a pennant run, that Kim gets jumped into the pennant run. Now this makes the Dodgers lineup look like this, which is pretty deep, right? You're going down to Betts. You could come in. We got to get Tommy Edmonds shouldn't be there. That should be. Do we have two Tommy Edmonds? This should be Teoscar Hernandez. So drop this Tommy Edman out. Put Teoscar Hernandez in there. Actually, I'll do that right now. And this is that. This is how it goes. This is how when you're making. Okay, so there's Teoscar is there. I must have copy and pasted. And then put Teoscar there and Teoscar there. All right. Yeah, you can bring him in against low on base or low control guys. You're playing the Rockies. You're gonna be playing the Rockies a ton, right? He's gonna, come in and just punish them, get a bunch of his home runs, especially at different points in the order. If you're playing the 2025 Dodgers, one, you're never going to really be at a pitching disadvantage, right? If whoever you play Glasnow or Snell as your 3 or your 4 pitcher, they're going to win a ton. They're going to have such an advantage. When you play regular, just the 20-man teams, there's a lot of zeros out there, a lot of ones, a lot of twos, a lot of people with home runs on their chart. The teams are just trying to get through. They don't have any weakness. They have nobody that you're ashamed to roll out there. If somebody does get shelled, especially Yamamoto, if Yamamoto gets knocked out early, it's going to get really tough because he's going to reset everything for them. That's going to be tough because you start losing for those every 3 runs, losing in innings pitched. So if you can get, say, 3 runs on Yamamoto early, make him have to pitch tired. I mean, they're probably still stretching him out. He's probably planning to pitch the equivalent of 7 innings every time. They're going to be a tough team to beat. They're not someone you're going to come in and expect if you're doing a full, 3-4 game series again. They're going to be a tough team to knock out. Especially if you're having pitchers carry over, being tired from game to game. But this is the type of team that I would say would win about 100 games. Which, the team that won the World Series, the team that if that team had been healthy the whole time, probably would have won 100 games over the course of the year. All right, quick note here. So I will pull everyone over into a spreadsheet here so I can just visualize it a little bit easier. This is where I'll leave my notes. I'll just put done if this is already locked in, hey, this is Ohtani, this is done. This is not a normal chart, this is done. Custom date. And I just want to leave all my notes here in case someone else is coming in and looking at this. And then I'll put Will Smith. So I would say the big decision here for the Dodgers is either Will Smith gets bumped up to a 10. If Will Smith gets bumped up to a 10, I think we leave Kim we just leave Kim in there. And then you'll have 3 10s. Will Smith up there as a 10. Really depends on what the catcher position looks like and if it needs another 10 on base there. If not, I think we just drop Kim out, put Call in. You end up with an extra set of 9s deep in this lineup here. But wanted to share this. Congratulations again to the Dodgers. Great team. Couple guys with some great years. Wanted to walk through the process of how making a 600 card, 200, 2025 set, how I think about a whole team, especially a team that had a lot of dramatic moments, a team that had a certain personality. How do you encapsulate that and not just make 20 or 25 individual cards that don't feed up into a full set and take a full time capsule of this? So enjoy Disneyland. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers.